Hey, what's up guys? It's Technical Tim here, and I want to thank everyone so much who's been liking all my videos and subscribing to the channel, and I'd appreciate if you gave this video a thumbs up. And this is I'm sorry so much about this week. I didn't do many detailed previews for UFC 238 because I was just kind of like, on these pay-per-view cards, there's a lot of line movement. There's a ton because public money comes in because it gets advertised a little more and people, like I have buddies who know how much I bet on MMA, and they'll start texting me, like you guys know how it works, and there tends to be a lot of line movement, and I've been camping out waiting for some line movement, and I pretty much got most of my picks at almost optimal odds. And the cool thing is, like, most of them are still available. Most of the odds haven't changed quite yet, but they were different before, and I kind of just wanted to keep taping and stay disciplined and kind of monitor the odds. So that's why it's been a little bit. So I figured to compensate for the lack of videos, I was going to do 2 final thoughts videos, kind of like 20 minutes each. And because usually I give like 1 20-minute final thoughts video and go through each fight, and I'll go through each one, but I'm going to do 2 of them just so I can spend one on half the card and the second on the other half, just so I can kind of speak a little more about the fights. But on my final thoughts, I don't go as technique oriented, but I kind of give away my picks and kind of the general reasons why. And so that's what I'm going to do. And ever since I did that podcast with Gugabe, I have a few different opinions on a couple fights since then. And sometimes that can happen just because we usually send that podcast out a little bit earlier in the week. And we'll have kind of like some fights kind of set in stone, but sometimes my opinions evolve, or I get, I tape more, so they change. So let's start with the bottom half of the card. Where are we? Chokegi and Calderwood. So I have a lean on Calderwood here, but I'm not going to play it for now. I think what I'm going to do is, the line's been going in the direction of Chookagian. Currently it's minus 115 Chookagian. She's actually flipped to the favorite. And if I get Calderwood, I wouldn't recommend throwing heavy on either girl here. Women's striking fights that usually stay striking, sometimes it's just hard to really know who's going to win when they throw semi-similar volume, just because a lot of shit can happen. And that's whenever fights just tend to be close. Pure women striking fights where the volume numbers are close, it kind of just ends up being kind of close decisions. But the reason why I'm leaning Calderwood, but I wouldn't throw on her anyway, just because of the reasons I said, I wouldn't throw heavy on her. The reason I'm leaning her is because she is the advancing fighter, I think about 82% of the time in her fights. And so she's kind of always the forward aggressor, while Chookagian's backing up the majority of the time. And I think Calderwood's going to be leading in this fight. And I think in a close fight, even though it's close, I think the forward movement will seriously probably be the reason why Calderwood wins. And I've noticed with Chookagian, she kind of can get landed on and get outpointed herself if you throw kind of lower kicks, meaning anything from the body and down. And Calderwood's probably the best kicker Chookagian's gone against. And I think Calderwood's going to kind of be the advancer and land some of those kicks. I also think if anyone gets takedowns here, it's probably Calderwood, because she can, I don't think, it's kind of hard to predict because neither of their takedowns are good. But Calderwood kind of tends to turn in some clinch takedowns into TDs, and she just finds herself on top. It's almost Michelle Watterson-esque, where like Michelle kind of does it with other type of throws and stuff. But they're like, takedowns aren't really good, but they tend to just keep working. So I could see that happening. Chookagian does have a pretty quick armbar and triangle, so I could maybe see a guard sub happening for her. But I think mostly this will kind of turn striking heavy for the most part. And I think Calderwood will be the advancing fighter. And I kind of was writing that down on tape. And she actually does throw 1.5 strikes more per minute. So she stays just as busy as Calderwood, or as Chookagian. So that's why I kind of tend to lean Calderwood. But at the same time, this is still going to be a close striking fight, so I wouldn't go heavy either way. So I'm kind of monitoring this line for now. Either way, I wouldn't throw more than a unit if you go with either girl, just because of the reasons I mentioned. but I think it's kind of a thing where if Calderwood flips to like to plus 120 or something, then I'll definitely toss like a unit on her. But either way, not going heavy, probably staying away for now. But the lines have been moving a lot, so after this video, like I might have more plays. So follow me on Twitter, buy my picks, $8, just so in case I have more plays after. Wineland Popoff. I originally had a lean on Wineland here, and you guys know, if you follow me, that I generally always pick the UFC veteran against newcomers who kind of just beat regional level competition. But this is kind of, except whenever the UFC fighter doesn't have depth to their game. And this is the fight that, this kind of reminds me of Thiago Alves Staropoli. Staropoli had one fight in the UFC against Aldana, but Aldana's kind of regional competition. And I understood why people were picking Alves in that fight. Like, I get the principle, but whenever you have not that much depth to your game, meaning Alves doesn't really shoot for takedowns and he'll accept a striking fight, I think Wineland's kind of the same way. And Popoff, I feel like, kind of like Staropoli, he can compete in a pure striking fight. So I don't think Wineland is as much of a lock as a lot of people are saying. Although if I were forced to bet this fight, I would pick Wineland, but I wouldn't be so sure. So I think this is kind of a stay away. But I totally understand why people are backing Wineland. I just tend to go with the UFC veteran kind of blindly almost whenever there's a little more depth to their game. A good example, Krzysztof Jotko versus Alan Amedovski. I did a video on that, and I could see there's a huge grappling advantage as well. And so whenever there's a UFC veteran like Jotko who can strike a little bit and grapple and will choose to grapple, that's whenever you go heavy. I think this one, stay away, but at the same time, like, it depends what your risk tolerance is. If you want to go in on Wineland, whatever, but I just think kind of just stay away. Bevan Lewis and Stewart. So I went, this is my first play of the night, and I think there's only two ways you can go in this fight. I think you either play Stewart KO or you got to play Lewis moneyline. I think if Stewart doesn't land the KO, he's kind of fucked. And so if you look at Stewart's KO line currently, it's plus 245, and any other result is minus 335. And if you bet Bevan Lewis right now, you can get him at minus 170. And I really think Stewart's kind of KO or bust here, so I'd rather go with the money line play. Like, I feel like we're getting value on Lewis here, actually. Because if he just survives, I think he wins. He throws a lot more. He's going to land a lot of teep kicks here. He uses his length well, too, to where it may not allow Stewart to get inside as much. Bevan Lewis will sometimes clinch in other fights, but I feel like in the Hall fight, he didn't really do that as much. And I feel like if he maintains an outfighting game, he can use his length and range and teep kicks to kind of keep Stewart away and kind of just outvolume him throughout the fight. I think he's a little more skilled of a kickboxer. But there's definitely a KO threat here for Stewart. And I think if you're playing Stewart, you should play his KO line. But I decided just to go to one unit on Lewis. That's all I did. I'm not hugely confident in this fight, but I do think there's a little bit of value. But I think you need to allocate your unit size appropriately, just because Stewart is a KO threat here. But I overall kind of like the way Lewis evades strikes. I think that Uriah Hall knockout was just kind of random. Like, that can happen here. But I think it's really a matter of Lewis is going to build a lead, and can he survive? And I think most of the time they do. Sometimes it doesn't happen. Watch the Hall fight. But I think Lewis is going to maintain that distance throughout the fight, and he's going to pick up a clear win. And there might be some scary moments along the road, but just one unit. That's all I played there. So I went small on him. Next fight, this is another one I kind of so I didn't tape too heavy on here. So like usually like women's striking fights, I tend to kind of tape later in the week. And it's because usually there's not always that much value in those fights, just because they usually just end up kind of being close. So originally, if you follow me on Twitter, I played Hill at like plus 180 or plus 175 because I knew that line was going to close because the volume numbers are pretty close in Hill Jan. And then I figured like the line would come down and I could get an easy arbitrage opportunity on Hill. That happened. I arbitraged Hill, so I already profited on this fight. The line came down and Jan's currently minus 155, so I ended up arbitraging and just won a little bit of free change. But then I taped. So like I arbitraged, then I taped, and the striking numbers are pretty similar as far as volume. But Jan hits way, way harder. She just does. And she also has kind of... Hill struggles with punchers at times. I've noticed she gets hit whenever she kind of comes in. And she's susceptible to punches. And Jan's the best pure puncher she's faced. And she's the most powerful. And I think it's going to be really noticeable on the cards that Jan's landing much cleaner shots. And I don't think... Hill doesn't hit hard enough, man. Like, I think there's going to be a big power discrepancy here, and I think there's actual value on Jan here. So I actually made a moderate bet on Jan. So I ended up playing her, and yeah, so I didn't expect that. And usually the fights I do well on are the ones I don't have much opinion on going into tape, and then all of a sudden I do have an opinion, because the tape usually is what tells you what's going to happen. And I think Jan's going to cruise. I think she's going to win there. I think it's going to be like a 30-27, 29-28 unanimous decision across the board. That's what I'm thinking. Grasso Kovalkiewicz, I'm not going to say much about that one. I think that's just a really close fight, and that's just it's really just one of those, like, neither girl's outmatched. They both have similar striking numbers. I think it's going to be a super close decision, and that's all I really have to say about that. I don't think it's worth our time betting on that one. Munoz and Sterling is the next one. This is a tough fight to call. I'm not playing it. I'm going to wait and live bet, and I'm hoping... So this is what I see. I don't think Sterling's going to get his grappling going. I really don't. I'm pretty confident in that. I think Munoz uses his guillotine really well, not only to threaten, but keep his hips back. And I like his takedown defense. Everything I've seen from it is really good. And he's one of the biggest pressure fighters in the sport. And I think he's going to pressure Sterling. And I think Sterling will take some sloppy shots. I don't think he's going to get all the best shots off throughout the fight. And I think, like, if he gets some type of takedown, I think it will be early, and I think that those takedowns are going to go away as the fight goes on. So I kind of think Sterling's not going to get his grappling going, and the question is, can he get his, like, kick out fighting game going? I think he's going to have success with it early, and I think eventually Munoz will be landing those calf kicks, and I think there's going to be a pivot point in this fight. I do think Sterling just, he comes out committed to a game plan right away. He did it versus Stamen. He's done it in a lot of fights. And I could see him just kind of winning early, and then eventually the pressure getting to him, and he's going to get eaten up with those calf kicks. And I just could see a pivot. I think Munoz might come on strong. And so what I want to do is, also, I want to throw in here, I don't read Aljamain Sterling fights well, so I could be totally off here. I think I picked him against Brett Johns. I didn't pick him against Rivera, and I thought Rivera was going to win that fight, and I turned out to be wrong, so it was a good stay away. But I generally just don't read his game well, like his striking or his grappling, like whether or not he'll be successful, because he's kind of an unorthodox fighter. He's kind of hard to read, and that's why I think I struggle. Another fighter I struggle with, and I stay away from her fights, Michelle Waterson. I thought Carolina was going to win that last fight. I stayed away because I know I don't read Michelle Waterson well. And so I know I don't read Aljo too well, but that's kind of my read. I think he's going to have success early, and then I really think Munoz, I don't think he's going to get the grappling going, though. And I really think Munoz is going to have a pivot point at some point. And I'm looking to come in live bet. Not for sure. It's just if I see a pivot happening, I'm going to jump on Munoz live. That's kind of my overall plan for that fight. So I'm going to stay away from it and kind of see what happens as the fight goes. Because I really think it's kind of a fight where you're going to kind of know what's going to happen after a round. I think it will be kind of obvious. It's going to be like whether or not Sterling builds up a lead, because I do think Munoz is going to have success late. So stay away for now and just pay attention in that fight and see if you see Sterling kind of wilting due to pressure and calf kicks. But no play there, no pre-fight play. So what do we got there? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cool. Then let's talk about one more fight, the Ivanov and Tuivasa. So I have one play on Ivanov, and this is like the one line that's really changed. I got him at plus 150. He's now plus 110. I don't find value in his current line anymore. I think it's a pretty close fight. But I think at plus 150, Ivanov was absolutely the correct play. But I only went 1 unit on him. I wouldn't play him anymore at plus 110. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But I think it's kind of a fight where I talked about in the podcast with Gugabe, Tuivasa really comes in recklessly. And the last person to really pressure Ivanov, and Ivanov was just moving backwards and countering the whole time with his left hand, was Rothwell. And Ivanov had a lot of success, actually. Like, I picked Rothwell in that fight, and I thought Rothwell won, but rewatching it, Ivanov was countering him a lot, and Rothwell's super durable. And this is a southpaw orthodox fight, meaning that left hand is going to be open for Ivanov because Tuivasa is an orthodox fighter. And I think Ivanov's going to land it clean quite often. And I just think there's other advantages too. I think if this fight hits the floor at any point with Ivanov in top position, I think he's going to finish Tuivasa, so that's another reason why I like him. The thing I don't like about that, though, is Ivanov doesn't offensively wrestle that much, so it's not a guarantee. But Tuivasa's tendency to clinch you up and be aggressive and clinch you up against the cage, I've seen Ivanov in other organizations turn that momentum when someone comes in for the clinch into a judo throw, so that's a way I could see him getting top position. Also could just see a club and sub because Tuivasa is super hittable. He comes in with no technique, and I could see him getting countered and hurt, and then Ivanov getting on top from there. I do think Tuivasa is like more athletic. I think he could come out and put heavy leg kicks. He throws a really heavy leg kick against JDS, so I see like Tuivasa maybe pressuring and bullying Ivanov for a while, and he could maybe cruise that momentum into a decision. But Ivanov's super, super fucking durable, so I don't think Tuivasa could put him away. It's heavyweight MMA, but I think Ivanov's just going to hang around and start having success in some area of the fight, because I really think he's got that countering advantage with that left hand, and if he gets in top position, I think he could do well. So I still think it's a close fight, though. Like I think Tuivasa has a path to victory. I just think it's a close fight, and at plus 150, why the fuck not play Ivanov on a fight that he's going to have advantages on? But that's pretty much all I have for the first half of the card. And just to kind of recap, no play for now on Calderwood Chokagian, no play on Wineland Popov. A small 1 unit play on Lewis, because I'm pretty much just betting on him surviving in that fight. That's all I'm doing, and I think he's going to. And then I have a decent play on Jan over Hill. I think she wins. And then Grasso Kovalkiewicz is an easy stay away, in my opinion. We can always come in live bet if we see something during. And then Sterling Munoz, I'm just going to look to maybe live bet Munoz and kind of see how that first round plays out, but no play. And then Tuivasa Ivanov. I got Ivanov at 1 unit, plus 150, but I wouldn't play his current plus 110 line. So those are my plays for the first half of the card. And part 2 of this video is going to be coming out the same days. I'll upload these kind of videos together. So thanks so much for listening, and I will be sending out part 2 soon.